Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in for this week's WorthWhile Spotlight. Before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, Visit Columbia, for being a big asset to the city. Check out their website at visitcolumbiatn.com, and they have all the local attractions going on, events, artists, businesses, everything you want to know about Columbia, so check them out. Today,
hey Tyler.
Thank you Kevin Latta for coming on.
Good to see you, brother.
Guest. Give a little description about what you do, and then we'll dive into just how we met and where we are right now.
Yeah, perfect. I appreciate being here. I love everything about your brand, and it kind of came along at a time in my life I guess we'll discuss.
Yeah, of course.
I'm Kevin Latta. I've been an attorney in Columbia for the last 16 years. I've had a couple of different roles, but I'm in private practice now at a firm, Parks, Snyder and Bryant, here in Columbia on the Square. I do primarily criminal defense work, probably 99.5% of my caseload. I chase the occasional ambulance, but generally I'm the guy in the trenches in court, trying a bunch of cases.
Nice.
And
you said 16 years?
Okay. This year will be my 17th year since I've been admitted. I was admitted in October of 2005.
How's that been, just for the journey of being an attorney? What's the most exciting thing that you can talk about that you think has happened?
It's been pretty amazing. It's a unique opportunity to really help people at perhaps their most vulnerable.
True.
I don't know if I could pick out one highlight or not. I've had everything from speeding tickets to first-degree murder trials.
So that's a pretty wide lens.
Every day is a little bit different, and every time I pick up the phone, I don't know where that's going to lead, and ultimately where it's going to culminate. But what I try to do is advise people who are either the subject of criminal investigations, maybe have received a charge by warrant or indictment, and sort of bring them into our office and decipher this legal language, which is intentionally vague.
Oh, of course.
And doesn't make a lot of sense, so that people can understand and go forward. If I had a specialty, over the years, it's been Fourth Amendment search and seizure issues. Maybe Article 1, Section 7 of our Constitution. Tennessee offers you a lot of protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. And where a lot of emphasis of my practice has been suppression of illegally obtained evidence. And in the age of legal hemp,
that's I'm sure a rising thing.
We've had the law is in a state of flux. Nothing really does worse about keeping up with technology than the law. And so I guess
technology is growing extremely fast too, and like faster and faster every single day.
Right.
So it's fair, I guess, that would happen. What's some challenges do you think are unfolding with that?
Well, let me start by talking about what I'm most often asked is people ask me, how to react to a traffic stop. And that's probably where most people interact with law enforcement. End up in General Sessions Court in front of Judge Sands or Judge Bailey here in Murray County. If you're arrested by warrant, that's your first stop in the court system is General Sessions Court. So what I'm asked most often is about how to react on the side of the road and the things to do. So if you wanted to, I could discuss that a little bit.
If you want to run through those real quick.
We advise, and we're pretty firm in the belief that your rights only exist if you exercise them. Police officers are trained to try to go beyond a roadside stop to gain advantages, be able to search, be able to go beyond the stop and look for other things. So we advise not waiving any of your rights. And in fact, my business cards are popular because on the back I've got sort of a 4-step response to an officer on the side of the road. But so many people ask about, should I take the standardized field sobriety test on a DUI stop? Should I consent to a search of my car? We say no to all these things. We think that if you're the subject of a criminal investigation, it's important to assert that you don't consent to a search. You don't wish to make any statements to law enforcement without an attorney present.
Would it be best, do you think, to say nothing, or is it just right off the bat I want to wait till my attorney?
I think having a good understanding of what your rights are and being polite but firm with the officer is the way to handle it.
Understanding it will alleviate that pressure that we're talking about that you feel when you see, like you said, those blue lights come on, and it's like, oh, whoa, I'm being pulled over right now, and that builds that immediate pressure, heart rate, and you're just like, man, your mind's all over the place. So what you're describing is kind of alleviates that pressure, just having the knowledge
I hope so.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite as scary as those blue lights coming on and being pulled over. I kind of like it because to me, usually I'm going to know the guy that pulled me over, and I understand what my rights are. But it is a terrifying experience. And just like in every other profession, there are good officers and bad officers, and there are officers that are better and worse on the side of the road. But the Supreme Court it's well settled that these officers are allowed to lie to you on the side of the road to try to induce you to give consent. So it's
savage.
It's a war that's being fought right on the side of the road, and you don't realize it. And one thing that's very important is a baseline knowledge for people to understand is that any search that law enforcement conducts in Tennessee without a warrant, without a search warrant issued by a magistrate or judge, is presumptively invalid. That means that when you go to court, if there was no warrant issued on the search, the state has the burden to prove it was a good search. You don't have to prove it was a bad one, and it starts on them. So it's very important to understand that. But there is a waiver that you can effectuate by giving them consent. And if you consent,
it's gone.
Then when you get to court, you can no longer challenge the validity of that search. So let me tell you how specific these officers have to be. When they turn those blue lights on, that's considered a seizure. You're not just free to drive down the road after that. They're seizing you. This can't just be on a whim. It can't just be on a guess. They have to have something called probable cause. And in Tennessee, that's a two-pronged test. Reasonable suspicion, but they also have to be able to support that reasonable suspicion with a specific and articulable fact. And I'll tell you that a large percentage of the time they have one or the other, but not both. But they're able to convince the person on the side of the road to consent to a search or consent to these tests.
And it's
on the side of the road.
Game after that.
You can't challenge it after that. You're effectuating a waiver of some of your most sacred rights right there on the side of the road. In fact, Tennessee, as Tennesseans, we have more protection under our state constitution than even the federal constitution provides. We have something called the Law of the Land Clause. If you will be very disciplined about how you act on the side of the road, you may survive the roadside to defeat the conviction. It's going to be difficult for them to come in and prove a case against you if the judge rules any evidence they obtained on the side of the road is illegal, inadmissible at court. So what we advise is the moment those blue lights come on, sort of get yourself in a mindset where you are the star of a movie that the jury is watching, because ultimately that's where it's going to be. Most officers' cars have dash cams.
Chest
we got belt recorders, body cams. We're in the age of media, and prosecutors are aware of this. And to get convictions, they want as much as possible. So we advise the moment the blue lights come on, think about what's happening from the perspective of a juror watching this movie of your roadside stop.
It's a good perspective.
That's why we don't advise saying nothing. It looks rude. I think you want to be firm but polite. So when the officer comes up, gives you a reason for the stop, asks for your license, I think you're duty bound to turn these things over.
Of course,
But if they try to go beyond the stop and say, well, do you mind if I search the car? Say no. Say no. You do not have to waive these rights. Very intimidating. Usually big guy, badge, gun, taser, all sorts of equipment telling you, I'm going to search anyway. I'm going to bring the dog. I'm going to get a warrant. Okay, do those things.
I'll be right here.
Right. Yeah. Too many of my clients try to talk the officer out of arresting them or whatever on the side of the road.
Well, there's a time and a place for that, which would be
that's court, right? Yeah. And that's going to be, you're very rarely are you going to affect the officer's decisions. What you want to affect is the judge's decisions based on your actions at the stop. So we advise not consenting to any search, not making any statements without a lawyer present, and not waiving any rights that you have. We actually, in fact, advise going a step further and politely but firmly asking the question, am I free to leave? It's so important to establish whether you're being custodially held or you're in a police-citizen encounter. If an officer walks up to you on the road and says, hey, Tyler, I want to talk to you, you can turn around and walk away. The minute you can't do that, they have to have that probable cause, right? The two-prong test we talked about earlier, and so often they have one but not both. So we advise asking if you're free to leave, and if the officer says no, you then know it's a custodial event, you know that these extra rights attach and what they're going to have to prove in court. That's for court. They say no, we ask, be quiet, ask where you'd like me to sit, and think about these jurors watching that movie of your roadside stop. If all they see is you being polite, asking where would the officer like you to sit, even if you're being put in cuffs and put in a hand in the back of a police car, you haven't given them any extra evidence. The minute you start doing these field sobriety tests, and let me tell you a little bit about these tests if we got just a minute.
Yeah, real quick, yeah.
These standardized field sobriety tests are what are called divided attention tests. So often people come to my office and they're like, I got a sure winner. I didn't step off that line one time. They're never going to be able to prove I'm drunk. And then we have to have the discussion about, well, this is a divided attention test. What they're doing is they're giving you a set of instructions while you're, sometimes before, and then during this physical activity to determine if your mind can stay focused on a task as an indicator
I didn't know that.
of inebriation or
so it really comes down to the mind.
well, a little bit. I mean, stepping off the line's not good,
Yeah,
but it's
of
one of
course.
15 indicators in a 9-step walk and turn test.
Got you.
The biggest indicator for the officers is not being able to follow instructions. Specifically with respect to the turn at the end, they'll usually tell you to plant your foot, pivot on your other foot, very specific instructions, and it's hard if you're inebriated to comprehend them and do them at the same time. So these tests aren't exactly what you think they are. There is a penalty for not doing these tests, and let me make that clear now. That you could lose your license as a civil penalty, not a criminal penalty, for refusing the field sobriety test. When you get your license, if you read the fine print, you agree to do these tests if the officer asks you. But the penalty is civil. It's a revocation of your license for a 1-year period, and you can get a restricted license with an interlock device and have no driving restrictions. The collateral consequences of a DUI conviction are so great as to not even be comparative to this civil penalty. A 48-hour loss of license on a first offense. I'm sorry, 48 hours in jail on a first offense,
I was like,
1-year
not
loss
that
of
bad,
license, and Tennessee has some of the strictest DUI laws in the country. It goes up to 45 days on a second offense, consecutive day for day. I mean, that would put most people's lives in just terrible disarray.
Probably lose your job, lose income. Yeah.
So the collateral consequences of a DUI are so great that we believe it's not worth the risk to potentially provide convicting evidence or additional evidence on the side of the road. Why give them anything more than they need?
Remain in your lane, do your thing.
And for those of you out there who are saying, this sounds immoral or not right, listen, if they have probable cause, if they've followed the law, if they've used their field card, if they've done the things they're supposed to do, they're still probably going to have a strong case. They may still send you to the hospital, get a search warrant, and take your blood. Whether that blood comes in against you or not is an open question. But if you consent and say, it's been a while since I had my 2 beers, maybe I'll give the blood, you've consented.
Yeah.
Then whatever those results are, they're in.
Yeah, and you allowed that to unfold.
There's in addition to DUI, there's another charge you're likely to face if your case makes it to a trial setting, and that's DUI per se. And we know the state has to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the highest burden in all of American jurisprudence. It's a higher burden than the government has to argue at the Supreme Court, which is a preponderance standard. They've got a very high burden. But this DUI per se only requires them to prove you were in control of a vehicle, in physical control on the public roadways while your blood was above a .08. It makes it a lot easier for them to convict you. In general, on roadside stops, we don't consent. We're polite, but we don't waive any rights. We talked about searches being presumptively unreasonable. The law is struggling right now in Tennessee with how to deal with the Agriculture Act. One of the exceptions to the search requirement was...
And what is the Agriculture Act?
The Agriculture Act was an act that made hemp legal in Tennessee under certain circumstances. And let's get this out now. Hemp and marijuana are the same plant.
Yeah.
Okay, they are the same plant. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation will stipulate that a human being cannot tell the difference between legal hemp
They look the
and
same, smell the
illegal
same.
marijuana with a 100-power magnification microscope. Okay, it's the same plant.
Yeah.
Previously, and for, I don't know, 60 years, the law has there's been an exception to the search requirement, something called plain smell. Only marijuana smelled like marijuana, and marijuana was illegal. Therefore, officers who claimed to smell or smelled marijuana at a roadside stop could search without a warrant based on the plain smell doctrine. Well, now we can drive down Highway 31 to Country Clouds, and we can buy hemp rolled in a cigarette, light it, drive around, smoke it in our car. It smells
just the same.
It's the same plant, so it smells just like marijuana. And we still have officers in entire jurisdictions who, although they recognize the plain smell doctrine is dead, are still searching and still
using that clause of like, I smell it.
Very few judges right now are willing to suppress based on this, and I've argued it. I've been very frustrated by it. I've been told to take it up at the Court of Criminal Appeals. I think that there are some courts that are now, sua sponte, of their own accord, starting to suppress these searches. But I mean, such is the nature of this business. I mean, it's like a competition to lock you in a cage. Right now, I'm very frustrated with officers who come to court and say, I had a plain smell. Even in the last 3 months, I've had officers look me dead in the face and tell me I can smell the difference between hemp and weed. It's physically impossible.
Yeah.
Your drug dog that can smell 1 part in 30,000 parts cannot smell the difference. You certainly can't.
Yeah.
But right now, the law has not done a good job of keeping up with technology.
Which I was about to say, like, comparison of the technology growth that you're saying.
5 years from now, the plain smell doctrine will be ancient history.
Gone.
People will remember when they used to just be able to say they smelled weed and they could search your car. But now, even though it's been obviated by a legislative act, as long as they can, they're going to continue to try to search this way. And until or unless judges start shutting them down and lawyers step up and file these motions to suppress, it's going to continue. And there's a great lawyer in Williamson County named Joey Fuson who has started the Hemp Law Group. And among the things they're doing, they do some regulatory stuff. He's working with educating lawyers to help us stop this. A lot of people don't know this. I was embarrassed that when I got to law school, I learned it there, but there's a couple of different ways that we come across our laws. We've got the legislature sitting up at the General Assembly in Nashville writing, 3,000 bills per session, several hundred of which will become law after the process, but also there's something called black letter law, or what you refer to as legal precedent. And that's where judges have made law by issuing these opinions, interpreting these statutes. So it's a difficult thing to get the judges on board to overturn these searches before the legislature does something to act.
So it's a consistent.
That's where we are now. It took a long time for Brown versus Board of Education, for integration of schools, for important legal doctrines to pass, and this is as important as any of those. And we're in the midst of a big battle, essentially against rogue elements of law enforcement now who would continue to search under this now obviated doctrine.
Well, let's tie it back to like how we met. I'm sure that is useful information, and like I didn't even know about as far as like the marijuana tactics and stuff. Because I've been pulled over and people have come to me and be like, "Oh, we smell it in the car," before not having anything in it, and it's like, in my inexperienced mind at the time, I was probably like 16, 17, 18, somewhere around there. I was just like, oh, of course, like if that's what you smell, I'm not going to argue. But like, it's knowing that there was nothing in the car. So, it's useful information. It's probably going to help people.
You're not incriminating yourself by asserting your rights and sticking to them. Quite the opposite. So, at the end of the day, you can boil it down to this. Survive the arrest to defeat the conviction. You're not going to defeat the arrest.
There.
Right?
Yeah.
So, it's much better for me to be questioning the officer on the stand under oath than you to be trying to explain your way out of it on the roadside.
Yeah, fair enough. You heard it. You heard it. But yeah, so we've known each other for about 5 years, about 5.5, somewhere around that range.
Yeah, I think a little more.
I would
Yeah, a little
imagine.
bit more, because I would have quit drinking in July of 18, and that'll be 4 years.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, my perspective, I was working at Southern Trey. I started there in 2018, I think 2017, maybe the end of
It had to be,
2017.
yeah, okay.
But I wasn't bartending at the time, and like, happy hour started at Trey, and like you and a couple other people became like regulars at the time frame there. And it's like, for me serving, and at the time I'd never watched or experienced like a regular and like the wholesome interaction between like, regulars. I mean, that's how it is. Like, people go somewhere and you build that relationship with either the bartender or a server or somebody like that. And I'd never watched that unfold on like a group scale. So like, it was a beautiful thing for me. It was actually inspirational for me as well, just because seeing that a connection could be built like that. Especially, Ben, shout out Ben that used to bartend there. Like, he used to wear a tie, and like he was presentable about what he did. He built the relationships with people, and like that was an inspiration to me. So like, when he left, I started bartending, and I actually had that experience. I got to shake people's hands, build conversation, hang out with guys, and like watching, like, y'all's group is phenomenal. I mean, shout out to Keegan, Patricia as well. That's my landlord. But like, watching that happen, like, of course you guys used to come in, have a couple drinks, and then, just watch it. We never really like communicated like that much. It was kind of just mutual, and like here and there, like, hey, how have you been? Stuff like that. But then, I observe everything. That's just like what part of who I am. But like, you start coming in less frequently, and then when you did, you were just drinking water. So like, what changed right there? Like, what stemmed from that? Like, how'd that unfold?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to talk about this.
Because that essentially is what led us to here, not knowing
Right.
it, like.
Well, I remembered back in the day, bartenders were some of the people I saw most frequently in my life. And just like we talked about everything, there's good and bad. And Tyler, to me, you're the kind of guy that it doesn't matter like what job you were doing, not to demean any profession, but if you were the dog catcher, you'd be the best, most professional dog catcher. If
I'd be
were
catching
the
them.
shoe cobbler, you'd be the best, most professional shoe cobbler. I'm so excited about your brand here because I love everything it stands for, and you being behind it really gives it that great chance of success. But so I started coming into Trey for afternoon happy hours like you talked about. Of course, back in the day, it was a little bit different. They hadn't quite worked on all the beer as much to make it go from 4 or 5% alcohol up to whatever it is now, 11 or 12%.
Whatever you want, really. You can start
Right.
from 2 non-alcoholic up to 10, 12.
Right, but it was, coming in, I mean, you were a professional in the service industry, and we loved coming in to see you because I think my second time I sat there, do you want this? You knew what my drink was.
Oh, yeah.
You knew, what to do, how to do it. And I come from a service industry background. I spent 12 years as a bartender and a server.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure for me to give big tips to people like you, but we loved coming in. So, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and sort of got myself in trouble, like you were talking about back in the day. My friend Keegan, some other people are in the real estate business. Their schedules are a little more open, so maybe 2 or 3. Remember when happy hour used to be at 2 or 3?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
It still is at 3 at Trey.
you could go have a drink, or have a beer, or 2 beers or 3 beers, go back to work, get something done. And then it seemed like happy hour got later in the day, the beer got higher gravity, and it got harder and harder to do things after leaving the bar. So you and I connected just over my alcoholism, I think.
Honestly, that's how I've met a lot of people, is through Southern Trey and like bartending, and it's wild. And it's something I kind of battle with. I'm not gonna lie, like, because I know, I guess, how much it could affect people, but here I am serving it.
Right.
And instead of at the same time, I'm pushing a brand. It's like, all about knowing you're worth it. But there's a gray area in that, because it's like they're two different things. And like I use it as a tool to meet people, network, and still spread that message. But I'm serving drinks.
Right.
So it's like, it's been a weird thing in my head that I've had to overcome.
I think I used to just have to come in and tell you beer or liquor. And it was beer, you poured my Singing River. If it was liquor, you poured my whiskey, and you knew everything.
Yeah.
And then
you guys would go at it at chess.
right. We're the wild party animals playing chess at the bar.
Like I said, I observed, and I knew that the two, you and Keegan, you were the back and forth, the kingpins of the chess. And I played Keegan one time at Asgard. I can't. Maybe it was like a year after we'd met, and he completely destroyed me.
My record versus Keegan is, I think, 1 in 200,000. I've won very few games. He's a good player, but at any rate, the last night I ever drank in July of 18 started at your bar, and I honestly don't remember if you were bartending or not. But by the end of that night, and then having gone to cities after that,
it started
very nearly died of alcohol poisoning. It was a bad scene for a long time, and it was a 4-day am I gonna survive kind of hangover. And at the end of 4 days, I was so amazed that I'd gone 4 days without drinking. I was like, maybe I can go 5. Maybe I can make it a week. What if I went 10 days? What if I went a month? And so I did kind of drop out of the scene and stop coming around.
So at first, though, it wasn't like that happened. You're like, I'm not going to drink anymore. It was like more of like, I'm just going to keep pushing this back. It was't like I'm going to go for a year without drinking.
I never imagined a life where I wasn't drinking. I really liked it. And I don't begrudge, and I'm not one of these guys who's become a teetotaler and begrudges anybody else a drink.
No.
It just wasn't, it's just not for me going forward in life. I joke with people, I exceeded one lifetime's worth before I was 40, and then the years after that were even worse. But what I appreciated about you is when I did come back, and it's a weird thing to quit drinking and hang around and try to do the same things, which you really can.
Yeah.
So for a while, I'd come back to the bar and I ordered water. You never put any pressure on me to drink, try to get a bigger tab for a bigger tip,
No.
anything like that. And I
maybe,
felt very comfortable
the occasional,
with you.
do you want a lemon?
Right.
Maybe 2 lemons? Yeah.
Right. But then after a while of not drinking, it sort of changes your life so much that you're not doing the same things you were doing at the frequency you were doing them before. So having that time to be able to come to your bar, not have any pressure put on me, still be able to be in a social setting, not be very isolated, and even getting some support from you. Hey man, congrats. Has it been 6 months? Has it been a year?
Yeah.
July will be 4 years. And
congratulations though on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought that if I did this one thing, it would completely change my life and everything would be better. It certainly changed my life, but doing that one thing
opened up many different doors.
Ended up not being the end all be all. And so when we were going to talk about how we reconnected.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Like, watching you kind of fade out of that scene, and I'm an observer even outside of Southern Trey. Every time I was in town, I'm like looking left and right, like, who's that? Or there's that guy, I know that guy. And I started seeing you more and more active, either walking the dog or riding the bike or stuff like that. And then I think you started coming here at Cab doing rolling and stuff, and I think you were active on social media at that time frame as well. But like, I was just like, oh man, like he's going through like a change of some sort. So I mean, were you that active before that, or you kind of stopped and then you're like, I'm gonna try and fill this void with jiu-jitsu or just being more active? Like, how'd those activities fall into?
It was definitely a conscious decision to try to be more active. I had been pretty active younger. I was an athlete coming up through high school, but had sort of fallen out of it. I mean, it's hard to get up and run several miles with a bad hangover. I feel like for a while the universe had been trying to show me the error of my ways, and I had my head buried in the sand.
The blinders.
When you kind of look for it and realize that it's kind of all around you, you just have to harness it somehow. It was amazing what falls in your path. So, like several people during COVID, my diet kind of went bad. I gained a lot of weight. I was out of breath at the top of a flight of steps, and found myself over at Cab signing up for jiu-jitsu, which has been as wholesale a change in my life as quitting drinking. It's been the most amazing thing in my life, and I know we're going to talk about that.
Was that your first time ever doing jiu-jitsu or rolling, or did you do anything like that?
I had done it a little bit prior, but it wasn't a priority. So
it was more like a little side deal. Like, I'm going to try this out.
If there was a happy hour, I'd go to happy hour. If there wasn't, I was training some in Spring Hill, which has a great school. But we're so fortunate to have Profectus here. But I know we're going to talk about that. So then I started, when just quitting drinking by itself didn't make everything better.
Yeah.
I started doing some different things and looking inward and seeing, what it was that I what am I doing? What am I trying to accomplish? So I did get off social media over a year ago, completely, wholesale, cold turkey, which was really difficult at first.
So what's the time frame from like stopping drinking and stopping social media?
It was over 2 years.
Okay.
And in fact, I think that social media became a crutch for me after I quit drinking, to see what everybody else was doing and still feel like I was sort of included.
I never really thought about it like that.
And then I one day somebody asked me, who's this for? I can't remember what I had posted. Well, it certainly wasn't for me. I was there, I knew what happened. And I think there is a place for social media. Businesses need it and people like it.
It's a double-edged sword. It's just how you use it.
Right. And I'm going to be using mine. We're going to talk about that for something I've got coming up. But so getting out of social media was a big deal. And then I had, let me tell you what happens when you quit social media for a while. Your friends come up and go, "Hey, did you see this? Hey, did you see this? Hey, look at this guy's page." And I was at a soccer game, I don't know, several months ago. And Keegan, the guy we talked about, said, "Hey, have you seen Tyler lately?" And I was like, "No, no, what's up?" And he said, "Hey, look at this." And showed me a post that you had, I think after a fitness challenge you did.
Yep.
And I mean, it looked like somebody needed to get you some Band-Aids because you're so cut up. You look amazing.
Thank you.
And fulfilled and happy, and you look great. So, we hadn't talked maybe in a year.
Yeah, if not more. And
at that point,
if we did, it was probably in passing.
Sure.
Or like, hey, what's up? Good to see you again. Or like Mealtown Coffee. I used to run into you there quite a bit. But yeah.
I was so inspired when I saw that I reached out to you. It's like, "Hey, this is Latta," in case my number's not in your phone. But holy moly, man! I saw this post. I'm not on social media. What is it? What have you done?
Just to describe what it is for people that don't know, it's a 75 hard challenge created by Andy Frisella. I started First Form, which is a supplement company, and he has a couple of gyms and stuff around. I don't know where specifically actually, but I just know he's started a couple of gyms. But the challenge is a 75-day consecutive challenge of no alcohol, a gallon of water, a progress picture every day, following a meal plan, reading 10 pages out of a mindset such entrepreneurial book, and did I say progress picture?
I think you did, yeah.
What am I missing then? I did it for 75 days, and I can't 2 workouts. Yeah, 2 workouts a day. One, 45 minutes each. One has to be outside. And to give full transparency, I cannot say that I 100% completed the challenge because each one of these tasks needs to be done 75 days in a row, not missing one. And I missed a progress picture twice, and I fell asleep one time, not finishing my water. I probably had like 24 more ounces, and I fell asleep because I was just dead tired. But I gained the mental discipline that the challenge was created for. It's not a fitness challenge, it was a mental discipline challenge, because if you do these things every single day, you have to train your mind to, like water, for instance. Like a gallon of water a day is a lot. And like the first couple of days, I was like, honestly, after New Year's, I was hungover.
Sure.
And I partied New Year's night, and I was like, oh, well, I'm starting tomorrow. I told myself I was going to start tomorrow. So my first day doing the challenge, I woke up late and I was not feeling good, but easy because I could drink water because I needed to hydrate. But that was one of the most difficult parts, was keeping up with water.
So no recovery days in that 75 days. Of course, you're a young guy.
Yeah. No, about 30 days in, I was like, man, this is gonna take forever. But like after about 40, 45 days, it just really became a part of my everyday routine, and I was just like, it's part of what I did. And honestly, now coming out of it, my last day was March 16th. I did end up going out St. Patrick's Day the day after, and honestly, it comes down to like the pressures of stuff. Like I internally was like, I don't necessarily want to drink. I'm doing phenomenal right now. I feel fantastic. I feel great. But everyone around was like, oh, we got to go out and like you celebrate. And you just finished this 75 days, and it's like, I don't necessarily want to go drink after not drinking 75 days. But I mean, I did, and it's like it's now it's like applying the discipline aspects that I've learned to my everyday life without having something that I'm doing. Like I was doing the challenge and I had to do these things because I was doing the challenge. Now it's like I did these things. I know the concepts that they apply, how my discipline acts now, but now I have to apply it myself into my everyday life. And it's a consistent challenge, and I feel like it's a battle every day. I mean, yesterday, for instance, I didn't go to the gym. The day before, I was balancing in my head, like I was busy all day. I was had a down motivated day, and I was like sitting there and I was like, I need to do a couple things on the computer, and I was like, no, I need to go to the gym, because if I go to the gym, I'm just gonna feel better, and then I'm gonna get home and want to do something. And And I did. So now it's a battle of like disciplining myself versus I'm doing this challenge and this is it. Kind of a little rant right there, but like that's what it was. And then that's what made you reach out, because Keegan showed you that picture and the progress, and you related because of your journey yourself.
Right. I recently, I've been searching for that order that, it's interesting to me. It's two workouts a day for 75 consecutive days, and then you call it it's a discipline challenge. It's not a workout challenge.
Because those could be anything you want. Like most of my outdoor workouts were a jog, run, or walk outside. And I ended up making those really reflective periods, like, focusing on my breathing while I was outside, just taking in nature and like being in the sun, stuff like that. Like I really found those to be meditative moments. Even though I wasn't sitting there like this, like I was
right.
by myself. I was present.
Well, that's one thing I was going to ask you today is like, what did that 75 hard, what does it look like now going forward? And I'm thinking of, I'm doing 100 push-ups, this many sit-ups. It's the discipline in your routine that you took out of that has sort of changed everything.
Yeah.
And you've incorporated that in working, my God, I mean, you're an entrepreneur. You quit your job. This is your job.
Yeah.
And so
really
you've got this
like
order
that,
in your life now that was born out of that challenge, and that even more than the results from your workout, this gun show you got going on. I mean, that's what you're going to take with you.
Yeah.
And 5 years from now, when you look back on that challenge, you're going to say it was the discipline.
Yeah.
And like what you're talking about, I know I'm going to feel better after I do this. Yeah. That's what I tell myself before a cold shower every morning.
I took one this morning.
Oh.
It wasn't a full cold one, but right before, I was like, I'm gonna make it cold just for today. I knew I was about to come do these couple podcasts, and I was like, I gotta just cleanse the body real quick. But
I hope that people watching get that from you, because it's funny, even after coming up on 4 years
from
of
you too.
Well, I quit drinking, and I thought that would just take care of everything.
Yeah, it just started it. It just started.
There was a period where things got worse after I quit drinking, because I wasn't attending to the other things. And so, like I said, I think the universe has been trying to put some stuff in my path for some time. For some reason, around the end of last year, I stumbled across a book by Marcus Aurelius called Meditations. I think the actual translation would be To Himself, but got interested in a philosophy called Stoicism, which is not a very evangelical pursuit, so forgive me, but it's basically about trying to live a virtuous life. And anyone watching this that has known me over the last 5 years is probably dying laughing right now, but it's about making decisions like that, instituting discipline, and living the best life you can live. So when I saw you, even though I didn't 100% know what you had been doing,
you knew that there was
some connection there, and it doesn't matter how you do 75-day hard, Stoicism, Atomic Habits, whatever mechanism you choose,
and it's different for everybody.
Right, but that Jocko Willenick, who has a podcast and talks about discipline equals freedom. I always thought discipline was the opposite of freedom. It meant but it actually, once you sort of get that routine, understand the rewards, and build that daily habit, and build in some, meditation is something I thought I could never do.
When did you start meditating? Was it after reading Meditations? Or was it before, and then you read that and you're like, this
I had sort of
sense.
A rolling start, and I took a class on Stoicism and on this philosophy at the end of last year, and then sort of prepared myself for New Year's Day. I started this daily Stoic New Year, New You challenge. And so every day of January, there was a different challenge, but it was cumulative in nature. So day one was take a cold plunge or a cold shower. Well, then for the rest of the month, you're doing day one plus, whatever day two. Day two,
okay.
Take a walk in the morning, journal. So what started in my mind as, okay, my New Year's resolution is going to be, I'm finally going to become a morning person, actually sort of became this greater trying to understand what it means to try to live the best life possible. And I'm inspired by guys like you. I've got a nephew who's in some extreme special forces training right now. Here's this 20-year-old kid living his max potential. I'm 48, and I don't know that I've ever done that.
Sounds like you are now, though.
Well, I
you
hope
got
so.
The Great Divide bike ride coming out. I mean,
This could be a colossal failure.
I mean, no.
Let's
I feel
edit
like you're
this
gonna
out.
crush it. You're gonna. I mean, describe what it is again. I know you said from north from Canada to Mexico.
So, it's sort of as a culmination of the study of what I've been doing and trying to get up early, own the mornings, do the cold showers, the meditation, and understand about making decisions and living very intentionally. I have an event coming up, a bucket list item, and just to try to see where my potential is and if I can max it out. I'm going to do the Great Divide mountain bike route this year. It's a route from about 280 miles north of the U.S. border with Canada. It starts in Banff, Alberta.
Okay.
And it's a 2,741 mile route with about 200,000 feet of elevation. From Banff to the Mexican border at Monterey Wells, New Mexico, along the spine of the Rocky Mountains. So
it just sounds aggressive, and that's one of my go-to words is aggressive, and that sounds aggressive, but I feel like you're gonna crush it.
It's a lot. It's a self-supported ride, so I'll have. I ordered the bike last September.
Yeah.
It arrived Mule Day morning. I missed Mule Day to wait on the FedEx so I could sign and get my bike put together. That I'll be shipping that bike up to Banff in about a month, so it'll be there when I get there. But it's going to be this year. The race hasn't run in about 2 years, and it is a race. And I'm leaving with the racers just because I want to see them. But I'm doing it as a ride. I expect to finish in between 35 and 45 days, depending on weather, injury, and mechanical issues. Yeah. And it's a self-supported ride. You can use things that are available to the public. A logistical challenge to start up north where it's cold at night and there's still snow, and then end with 800 miles through the desert.
You got to keep all of that in mind.
You have to carry everything you need. You can send stuff home, and I'll be sending some care packages to pick up along the way. I'll be ditching my puffy coats when I get into New Mexico and taking on some Nalgene bottles. But to me, this is sort of the culmination of all the studying I've been doing and meditating, and it's going to be about a 40-day period of extreme isolation and being pretty solitary.
Obviously, it's going to be a physical challenge, but how much of it do you think is going to be mental?
I think 99%.
not to take away from the physical aspect, though, but I mean, a lot of it is going to be I can do this, and I have to keep going. I got to do this every day. I got to do this just to keep going. And I mean, that's what you're saying this training is for, essentially. And you didn't even know that. When did you decide on doing this?
It was a bucket list item, and I always toyed with in the back of my mind. Okay. But until sort of really thinking about, okay, how do I live this virtuous life? What things should I do to try to challenge myself, do hard things? I wanted to find what I thought was the hardest thing I could actually do. And I'm 48. I'm not going to go do Navy SEAL training and have any chance. I'm certainly not going to run Leadville 100 or something. And this ride, they can't keep you out. There's no registration fee. There's no prize money.
So if you want to do this,
they can't keep you from doing it.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this is perfect. Even a bald guy can get in on this. But I really think the physical part of it is secondary to the mental. There's days where I'll give you an example. The ride starts, and 2.5 miles in, you begin a 27-mile ascent. I've never done more than a 5-mile ascent, and every day there's thousands and thousands of feet of climbing. The hardest riding you're going to do. But I really truly believe it's a mental game.
Yeah. Do you think? Is it harder in the beginning versus the end, trail wise, or is it? Do you know any?
Very
about
different.
That, or is it...
Starts in the high timbers up in Banff, and then of course a lot of elevation gain along the spine of the Rockies. One good thing about the first 1,500 or 2,000 miles of the ride is there's plenty of water in the form of streams.
Yeah.
I have a filtration system. So it's a different challenge after you finish the climbing. The last 800 miles are through the New Mexican desert during July.
There's no water. Yeah. And I think you'd mentioned there's what's the gap between?
There's two places supply? I think where there's 200 miles between water sources. So you have to plan carefully. I think I can carry about 8 liters at that point on my bike, ditching some other equipment. These are flatter roads, but the wind cuts washboards in them, so it's kind of 800 miles of And to me, the route designers, that's just the final mental test.
Yeah.
Like you make it out of the mountains, you've got 800 miles of pretty flat.
You still got to go through that. Pretty flat is the key, yeah.
It's interesting. I haven't been able to book return travel because I don't know what day, maybe even what week I hit the Mexican border. But the judges have been nice. My law firm has been nice. I'm able to take a sabbatical for 7 weeks.
Nice.
And I really think anybody that could get the time off work could do this ride. Maybe that's the main thing, is getting the time and then working in the training in advance.
And tying that back to the 75 hard, like I couldn't imagine, like, of course, if I made the decision, like, I'm going to do it, like, I would do it. But I was at a point just leaving Southern Trey that, you know, I'd been gone. I left end of October. I started the challenge at the beginning of the year. So I had 2 months of, like, kind of, honestly, I was just doing whatever I wanted at that point. You know, I was like, I'm free. I can do whatever I want. But at the beginning of the year, that happened, and, like, I wasn't working. You know, like, I work at Meal House a couple times a month. I don't really consider that a job. I'm there a couple times a month, you know. So, like, I had the time to do this challenge, and like that, like you just said, like that's a huge thing to even have the time.
Right.
And I took full advantage of it. I mean,
so will that be kind of an annual thing for you?
I think so. I think so. I might even. So I'm still on the point of like developing like what my route, because I'm such a go with the flow person that like I get up and like I don't know who's gonna call me today. I don't know what's gonna happen or where I'm gonna need to go. So I try and really, it's a double-edged sword, but I try not to plan as much. I try and plan day by day. So I'm developing, I guess, my new routine as I'm living it out. But I think I'm gonna do it once a year, just because it's a cleanse. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get my mind right, body right, and everything lined up for the year, and then just go from there.
That's good news to me, because as inspirational as I found it, and then by next year your brand is going to be huge, right? We'll be bigger than Joe Rogan.
I hope.
And but so many people are going to be inspired by that, and I feel like, you know, the journey that I've been on, I identify so much with WorthWhile. Like, you know, here's a guy, 48 years old, you know, in the trenches, criminal defense lawyer. I can turn it around. I am worthwhile. You know, these decisions that I'm making do have a positive impact. You know, one famous Stoic philosopher, Zeno, said, you know, change is a matter of small steps, but it's no small thing. And that's so profound. That's powerful. You know, and essentially at its essence, Stoicism is dividing things into 2 categories, and they're things you control and things you don't control. And it's just disciplining yourself to give 100% of your energy to the things that are in your control and 0% to the things that aren't. And that is a difficult practice, my friend. It's very difficult to ignore the noise.
Do you think you've gotten better at it? Or is it something that's just a consistent struggle
On the
day?
whole, I think I've gotten way better at it.
Yeah.
You know, one thing, I found a guy online named Ryan Holiday. He's a younger guy that, you know, puts these 2,000-year-old philosophers, makes them not stodgy, and explains that this is not this wasn't some theoretical discussion about what is justice or you know, it's a guide for life from some of the smartest people who ever lived. You know, Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome. He was the most powerful man on the planet.
Which is the one that wrote Meditations,
Meditations.
right? Okay.
And this was written as a journal to himself. The translation isn't really Meditations, it's to myself. I think he would be horrified if he knew we were all reading this book. Yeah. But he would wake up in the morning and do his journaling and say, man, it was tough to get out of bed this morning, but the birds were working, the ants were working. I need to go, there being ants and birds, I need to go be a human. Purpose of a human is not to lay in a warm bed, it's to get out and work. Yeah. And here's this guy who could have anything he wants. He's the most powerful man on the planet. And during the Antonine Plague, ironically enough in the age of COVID, and he would do things like mark the fineries in the castle for sale and sell them, and then put that money in the treasury. He never thought he was above anyone else. You know, he could have. Rome's had some bad emperors. Marcus Aurelius is generally considered the last of the good emperors, and then you get into Caligula, Caesar. You have all these horrible people who. They say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And ancient Rome's a good view of that. But Here's Marcus Aurelius, who was uncorruptible because he's living this virtuous life, because he's asking himself these questions.
He was in tune with himself.
And like you said, there was that day on the 75-day challenge, I didn't do this or I didn't do this. You don't throw your arms up and quit.
Yeah.
You come back the next day and try to be better.
Yep.
And so I would say it's really changed my life in as much as now I get up at 5 a.m. I'm out my door by 5:05 to take just a walk, not for exercise, not for any purpose other than getting out with my dog, getting my, starting my day.
That provides that clarity and that one-on-one time. Obviously, you're with your dog, but like you're doing something and you're thinking. You're not just walking around not thinking. You're present. You're starting your day with an activity, and you're going back and you've done something.
It's almost like a moving meditation. Before and listen, my max I've learned I can meditate about 10 minutes. So at the end of the walk, we meditate, come back, take that cold shower, which I loathe and I dread, but I feel so good afterwards. Do my journal, come to work, and by 7:30 in the morning, I feel great.
Yeah. This is a fantastic day.
I'm not hungover. I've had my cold shower. I've had a walk. I've meditated. I feel lighter, clearer, ready to attack the day. And my days aren't, nobody has easy days anymore. But, a lot of times my job is as much psychology as it is fact, as much dealing with this judge's peculiarities or this client's proclivities. And I need to be ready to, just remind myself, these people are going through the hardest thing they're ever going to go through. And I need to back up. And am I communicating effectively? Do they understand everything that's going on? Am I translating this?
Getting mentally sharp, mentally aware and sharp.
Right. And, I think the great thing about your brand here is I can apply that to stoicism, to myself. I can apply it to my professionalism and to myself, to my clients, and it's a good reminder to me. I love wearing your merch because I look down and it's a good reminder. Okay, where am I at in making my client feel worthwhile, knowing that I'm worthwhile, my employees, my bosses. It cuts across all lines.
And that makes me happy to hear that, because I've always I don't want this to be a brand that you have to buy this so you're worthwhile if you buy this. I want it to be a reminder of your self-worth. It shouldn't be I need to buy this piece of clothing just so I know I'm worthwhile. It's a reminder.
Right. Well, and going forward, not everyone, right now you see somebody in a worthwhile shirt, chances are they know you.
Yeah.
But going forward, and the people who get introduced to the brand who don't know you personally, they know somebody like you. Like that guy who, no matter what he's doing, he's going to do that best job. Never looking down on what the job is, doing the best job in that moment for what I've got to do that day. And that's one thing that, I think draws people to you, is that they can learn from watching you. Maybe there's people who aren't in the profession they want to be in, or they're not in the physical condition they want to be in. They can do the best job they're doing that day. And I was about to say earlier about Ryan Holiday, he has this saying, if you get 1% better every day, what happens after 100 days?
100% better.
And I think that
after a year, 365.
That's amazing and worthwhile. Sometimes you need that motivation. You need to look back in your mind and say, what is it? And saying, I'm going to live to the fullest potential. I'm going to reach my potential, or I'm worthwhile. It's such a noble concept, and I hope that. I hope you are bigger than Joe Rogan, and that people start.
The goal is to be worldwide. Obviously, there's no time frame on when that's going to happen, but I have enough faith inside of what's happening. I feel like there's that divine universal hand on it, and that's where I've got to where I'm at. So I'm just going to keep growing until it's that point.
One concept Stoics talk about is amor fati, or a love of fate. We love everything that happens. A car broke down, good. That gives me a chance to get it.
Yep.
This meeting got canceled, good. That gives me more of a chance to prepare. And you seem to personify that to me. Okay, here's what today is. Maybe it wasn't what I planned. Here's how we're moving forward.
And then I know we've talked about when we first reconnected, but realizing the perspective of this is happening for me instead of to me. The car broke down, happened for me. You might have gotten an accident if it was working that day. You don't know, but it didn't, and that provoked your time in a different way. So, everything happens for you in your journey through life, and that's just, it's easier said than done, but it's day by day process of realizing if something bad happens every single day and you just let it happen once and you're like, man, this sucks, this happened to me. And then the next day something happens, man, this sucks, this happened to me. Like that thought process is going to build every time you say that, and it's going to eventually, your subconscious mind is going to be thinking negatively. So it's like trying to stop it in those moments when something happens and you feel that anger come up and you're like, like why is this happening to me today? Like, okay, well, this is happening for me today for a reason that's unknown to me.
Right.
But all I can do is be present. This is the problem, and how am I going to get around it? How am I going to get to work? How am I going to do this next? Asking the question how is going to be powerful. It opens doors. What can I do for you? How can I help you? That opens so many more doors than get out of my face, I don't want to see you, or like I've had a bad day because my car's not working. Like it's perspective, but it's not easy.
That's amazing. For me instead of to me. What can you not apply that to? And I used to be an angeraholic too. I think I used to look for things to go wrong because I was so good at erupting like a volcano about it. And now, okay, client didn't show for their meeting. Okay, well that happened for me. Now I've got this hour clear. But it is hey, listen, man. I still have my days where I catch myself, and I've sort of given my assistant some instructions. I'm trying to do these things. When you see me not doing them, you call me out on it, and it's tough. It's tough, man. Everybody has stress. Everybody, I'm trying to, in dealing with everybody's lives, you don't know what they're going through or what stories they have. Everybody's very busy. We have this 24-hour news cycle. You've got these leashes, these electronic leashes where people can always find us. And I think, saying I'm worthwhile, it's worthwhile to take this time for me to establish this routine for me. And you know what? I don't turn on my phone anymore till 7:45 in the morning.
Nice.
I've been up since 5, and that's made a big difference. I'm setting my day. I'm not responding to other people to start my day.
There's a guy that I listened to on a podcast one time that was talking about, when you're sleeping, and like, for instance, start with meditation. When you're meditating, your mind is in a different, realm, and you're in a place of peace, or it's not necessarily clear. I mean, your thoughts are still there, but you're with yourself. And when you're sleeping, you're essentially in that same area, depending on what level of REM sleep you're at and what frequency your brain's going to sleep at. And he was saying that, like, our brain works all the time subconsciously throughout the day, and there's a million problems that we are on our journeys through life, like little things or big things. It doesn't matter. Like, there's consistent things we're trying to solve or fix or make better. And when you're sleeping, that your brain is like auto running and like solving these day-to-day problems that you don't have the time during the day to sit down and be like, I'm going to figure this out. And they said essentially, like, when you wake up, that your brain is downloading the things and the problems that it solved during your sleep. But if you immediately grab your phone, it's cutting off that thought process. You're immediately engaged in what you're holding. So like he was saying that he would go 2-3 hours without opening his phone, journal, not listen to music, anything that distracted from his mind from taking in what it just did. And it's a wild concept to think about. I'd battle with not being on my phone. I mean, most people, your alarm is on your phone.
Sure.
So like as soon as you wake up, your alarm's on, you grab your phone and shut the alarm off, and your phone's already in your hand. It's like set up to make it easy, or set up to make it hard to focus on yourself.
Sure. One thing where are we today? April 11th. Okay, yeah. So I'm almost 4.5 months into it, the very disciplined routine. One thing I'm constantly reminding myself is it's the cumulative effect of all these daily decisions. So the first day, I get that your screen time was up to 4 hours and 37 minutes, okay, what? We're killing social media. Well, the next day after I closed my social media accounts, the world didn't change.
Yeah.
It's that cumulative effect of changing your habit. The first day you try to go to sleep at 9:30, 10 o'clock, you can't do it.
It's easier to get up
First time you try
earlier.
to get up at 5 a.m., it's hard.
But it's easier. Would you agree that it's easier to get up earlier versus trying to go to sleep earlier?
110%.
It's like you go to sleep at the same time every night. Your body, you try and go to sleep earlier, your body's like, what are you doing? Like, this is not when we go to sleep. But it's easier to get up because you could just force yourself. If you just open your eyes, just get your feet out of the bed. Like, there's easier things you can do to just make that process happen. But once you're up, you're going to be tired at night because you got up earlier. So it's going to be easier to go to sleep that night. because you got up earlier. So it's just focus on getting up earlier, whatever time you want it to be. That's all it is. And that's not really all it is.
Well, I'll give you a pitch.
It, yeah.
You know, I think one thing that helped me, and everyone's very different, but I would be remiss, and I know we're going worldwide, but a lot of people that are going to watch this are from around Columbia in this area. I mean, what a special area we have, a special community. And then if anybody's thinking about doing anything like that 75-day hard or getting into stoicism or even Epicureanism, whatever it is you're going to do, read Atomic Habits and try to make some changes, let me suggest that you stop by Perfectus Jiu-Jitsu Gym down on South Main and consider making that a part of your life going forward. It's been the single most transformative thing in my life. Would you say more another mental asset more than physical, or both? I think it's probably equal. Jiu-jitsu is the most difficult physical pursuit I've ever attempted, and I used to be athletic. The only thing I think you could compare it to is maybe swimming with somebody trying to pull you under the whole time. We get in. It's not. We don't do striking, but we do a lot of joint locks, submission work. It's to me the fullest expression of your physicality that you can have. I mean, you're literally using your toes, everything from your toes all the way up. We were talking earlier about a great guy who I hope gets on the podcast sometime named Spencer Askew.
Just met him this past
One of the
weekend,
coaches down there. This gym down there, it is a special, special place. First of all, the facility is absolutely amazing.
Right off the square.
It's down on South Main, across from Ted's and to the right. Come in, they'll get you set up with a free class, see if you like it. We have men, women, children. Their children's program is growing huge, but I mean the numbers of people who, everyone works out there. People who move into town that are looking for, a place to work out, but also a community.
Yeah.
Friday night we were down there and they had a songwriters night, and some of the coaches are playing, some of the students are playing. This is a community center that also teaches very high level competitive jiu-jitsu.
I told him I'd come in this week.
Dude, great!
I told him I would, yeah.
Great. Let's go. Let's go tonight.
We could.
I love jiu-jitsu, and you were talking about mental and physical. As the physical comes along, because it will change your body very much. You're using muscles you don't normally ever use, and you saw Spencer. I think he weighs 270.
He's a large guy.
When you're underneath a Spencer, you'll use muscles you didn't know you have to try to get out from under there. But also, it teaches this things that you can take into your life, like being uncomfortable in a situation. We roll in competition 5-minute rounds, and 5 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're fighting, when you're trying to keep someone
fully
from choking,
engaged,
it's a long time. And when I first started going, I'd really battle against something we call a fatigue tap, and that is I look over, there's 3 minutes left on the clock, I know there's no way I'm going to make it, there's an arm on my neck, I just tap out. We don't really, you won't find me doing that anymore. I've learned, okay, get my breath. Don't make it any worse. Get on my side, try to figure out how to get my knee in. It teaches you what you're capable of in these tough situations where maybe 30% of my wind is cut off, but I can't quit yet. I need to work this out.
Still thinking it out.
And the mental toughness, it literally, it on its own, once you start figuring out that you have it, it carries over into other aspects of your life. And I hate to keep going back to stoicism because I hear it said it's
a part of your life now.
Not a very evangelical pursuit, but one thing that stoicism teaches us is, we suffer a lot more in our imagination than we actually do in reality. And my whole legal career, I've done that. I'm the guy who's in bed arguing with the judge at night, and then get in the hearing and it goes fine. Or this person's going to react this way, and I impute to them the worst reaction. So it was like that with jiu-jitsu. Oh my gosh, I used to dread it. Oh, I'm going to roll tonight, and I'm going to be so tired I can't breathe, and this. Well, and then after a while, you start realizing, well, it's not that bad. And then you start learning some techniques, and the way that I judge myself in jiu-jitsu is against myself. So, the Kevin who walked into CAB before they started rolling here, is he the same jiu-jitsu player that's going to go into class tonight? Absolutely not. The Kevin tonight would demolish that Kevin. But there's no place for ego. We don't have any bad attitudes. It's an amazing place where everybody in there is there to make everybody else in there better. How many places like that are there?
I mean, I'm sure the energy radiates there.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you come in and it's your first night, nobody's gonna make fun of you, do anything. You know, hey man, good job on that. You did great on this. You know,
welcome.
It's you know, we've had marathon runners come in that are like, after 3 minutes, just laying on the floor decimated. It's the physicality of it is tough to describe, but at the same time, it's like a chess game. Where's my leg going? What's my arm doing? What's he going to do when I do this?
Thinking ahead.
You know, these things like chess and like jiu-jitsu, I love them because you can be completely present, and you must be.
I was about to say, you have to.
When you've got somebody like Spencer on your back and you feel his arm going around your neck, you can't be thinking about what that judge is going to say in the morning. You know, or what you're...
Which is a form of meditation, being present.
It is. It's hard to be present, and that teaches you.
I think recently I'm starting to realize that like a lot of people don't meditate, but they have forms of meditation that they don't realize are meditation.
I think you're exactly right.
So like my friend Skylar, you know, we were talking about meditation one day, and I was like, do you meditate? And he's like, no, but I think meditation for me is like when I'm riding my dirt bike. And I was like, exactly. I mean, it's like you have to be fully present to be focused on riding this dirt bike around the track. I mean, you can't be thinking about, man, what am I going to eat for dinner? Because you're going to wreck. Like you have to be present. It could be any sport, it could be any activity, but the point is to be present with yourself, and like that could be achieved in multiple different ways. And it's just a matter of finding your avenue.
Who could say it better than that? You know, I look back and I think of all the time I wasted being a drunk and an asshole and ending relationships poorly and just kind of being in life for myself. But you know, I can't do anything about that now, and I can't change that.
That actually lines up with a question I'm wanting to start asking more frequently. But if you could go back to any age time frame in your life and give yourself advice, what would it be?
Wow. Well, I think I would go back to.
I should have waited while you weren't taking a drink.
No, what an excellent question. You know, I'm almost 49. I've traveled a lot. I've done an awful lot of legal work, and I've seen a lot of tough situations, and feel like I've interacted with a lot of people. I guess I would want to go back to the earliest time I think I could make myself listen to myself, which might have been my mid or late 20s, because I wasn't listening to anybody from 16 to 24. I promise you that.
Rogue.
Oh, it was terrible, just terrible. I had hair and muscles back then.
Okay, are we talking long locks? We're talking mullet?
I had the mullet. I had the mullet at one point. It's tough to believe.
Nice.
But I think if I could catch myself maybe around 24 or 25 and teach myself that ego is an enemy, that keeps you from realizing your potential, I think my life would be a lot different. So I'd probably go back to that time. I think about my nephew who's doing the Special Forces training now at 20. And I mean, of course, they have a lot more media. They've got a lot, I mean, these kids now, I call them kids, but a lot more self-aware, it seems to me, at a younger age than we ever were coming up, because they've got so much to consider.
You're exposed to so many different
So I think
things.
some self-awareness, certainly, if I could go back and do something about the ego that limited my potential for maybe 20 years of my life, 49 years of my life, I would probably go back and have a little talk with myself about that.
That's powerful. I mean, circling back to the ego, it's a part of all of us. Everybody has an ego, and that's just who you are. That's who you've developed into this in this world that we live in.
Survival mechanism.
Yeah, it's your, I don't know, created character. I mean, like that's who you've become in this life, and it's not you at the same exact time. It's you are your thoughts, and like your ego is how your thoughts are acting out. And it's once you like have this separation or ego death that many people experience, like it's then talking back to like 75 hard, there's things you learn and you have to apply it. Like you may have this separation of ego and realize that it's running, and like that's the cause of these angry decisions or this, that, and the other, but like it doesn't go away. If you didn't have Kevin Latta, what are you going to do when you wake up? Like that's your entire life's been built off of Kevin Latta. My entire life's been built off of Tyler Steigelman. But like that's using it and realizing that you can control your ego versus it controlling you. Like you said, it's consistently trying to take you down. And if you realize that, then you can separate the two. And it's not easy. Like everything we're talking about is not easy. It takes applied effort and consistency, but
How are you so self-aware at such a young age? I think that was very astute. You said it doesn't go away.
No.
I was just telling somebody that they were talking about the ride coming up and what its purpose is, and I said, evil Kevin, old Kevin,
See, and you're talking in that perspective.
comes back from time to time,
Yeah.
and the more stressed I get at work, or the bigger case, he really tries to come back. And this ride, I think at its base, and I don't know that I've ever said this out loud, its purpose is to kill old Kevin once and for all.
I mean, there's the root of it.
35 days of suffering to kill old Kevin once and for all, and hopefully, but it's right. That ego could come back if I'm not careful.
It's always there. I mean, it's like what we've been built
Especially in a competitive environment, maybe in a court case where I walk in and
But the thing is too, like once you go through these efforts of like, say you achieve that goal and you kill off old Kevin, like, and something happens in a courtroom and like it sparks that, like you are aware enough at that point that you're like, there's old Kevin, he's trying to come back.
well, I got your cell number, so I'll call you and be like, hey man, help me out here.
I'm like, is this the old or new Kevin? I didn't know which one I'm talking to, but no.
Well, have you, from your 75-day hard, did it change the way that you approach nutrition and recovery? Are there things in your life that have, we talked a little about that, and being an older guy, I've really struggled in learning that. I think the older you get, the more the numbers get skewed, but, probably for me at this point, I think that, it's 86, 87% about recovery. 10, 11, 12% about nutrition, and maybe 1 or 2% about the workout. I mean, it needs to be focused and you need to do it. What do you think, how old are you?
25.
Oh my God. So what kind of nutritional or recovery things do you do?
So I didn't actually shout out my friend Lucas. He's actually got a lot of knowledge about the workout industry and like just recovery, nutrition, stuff like that. And he was like, this challenge, like if you're going hard every single day, doing an intense workout twice a day, he's like, you're gonna wear your body out. Like it's not gonna be beneficial. You're just gonna be tearing yourself down. So he actually came up with a plan of just a different mix of upper body, lower body, different things that I could choose from throughout the day and alternate. That way I wouldn't be completely destroying my body. And then that's why I took on doing the walks as well. So like I wanted it to be, like I said, that over time I'm gaining these discipline aspects, not like I'm going to do this for the physical aspect and I'm going to get just absolutely shredded. I knew it was going to happen if I was consistent.
The cumulative effect.
Yeah. And nutrition aspect, like I didn't hit like a specific, like a, diet that's like, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I cut out fast food and I cooked at home 85% of the time, and I was being aware, I was mindful on what I was eating. If I went out to a Titans game, watching the game at someone's house, I didn't eat the cheese dip. I didn't eat this, like it was the discipline aspect. And that was really, I didn't really have like a recovery, because there was a couple days I'd be like really sore, and especially in the beginning. Like I was running in the beginning, I wasn't doing a jog, and like I was running and like my legs would be killing me, and then I'd go to the gym and do upper body, and then my body would be killing me, and I'm like, man, this is going to be not fun. But then that's when he introduced that plan, and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to hit these evenly across my body, not tear myself apart, but just slowly build. And that's where I got. I had my protein shakes and stuff like that, but other than that, I just tried to be mindful in what I was eating. Didn't have any sweets, didn't have any like cookies, ice cream, nothing like that. And I think that was a big thing. And fast food for me was a big one that I wanted to get rid of anyway, because it's convenient, it's not healthy for you, and it's cheap. So like that I would be eating all the time. Like, oh, well, let me just go grab Big Mac from McDonald's because it's right there. I live in Riverside, so it's like 2 feet or
the correlation between the price of food and its nutritional value is shocking in America.
Everything is against you becoming the best version of yourself.
The best food is the most expensive. It's very difficult to, it's difficult to walk around a grocery store. You almost have to shop around the edges to stay away from sugar.
You get into that too. They're deliberately organized in the way that they are in stores for advertising purposes. Things are at eye level for you to see it that is going to probably not be healthy for you.
Right.
Like things are priced at price points that you're not going to buy something more expensive and healthier because I'm going to buy this because it's going to save me some money, but it's not as healthy for you. Like it's set up intentionally to not have you grow, and it comes down to you. How much do you want it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we had talked about, and a lot of people have asked me that come roll or that come down to the gym. We found there's not that much out there that's not junk, but I feel like I've found the best consumer products of my entire life, and a lot of the guys at our jiu-jitsu gym are using these. Do you mind?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
We were talking about protein shakes and meal replacements, and we get nothing, right? We're not sponsored by Huel yet. Huel, reach out. WorthWhile, Huel, Natural Synergy. But I found this. It's a meal replacement system. It does contain protein, but also vitamins, 400 calories per shake, MCT oil, branched chain amino acids. It's very good for active people. And in fact, I've gotten to the point where now I don't even enjoy working out unless I know I'm going to have
that's like your treat. That's your treat afterwards. Yeah.
And I almost can feel my body soaking this up. Now, food, a good balanced diet, actual food is definitely the best way to go. But let me tell you that with Huel, for less than $3 a shake, you can have virtually perfect nutrition in a day's time. And
can you get that here local, or do you have to get online?
It's a UK company, but they'll send you a free sample. There is a slight transition period, while your stomach kind of gets used to it.
I mean, that's with anything too, changing your diet. I mean,
but they'll send it. Mine comes, I think, every 18 days, delivered to your doorstep. I keep one bag at the office, one in my gym bag, one at home, and an Nalgene bottle.
You're strapped up at any point.
Listen, I've been doing time restrictive eating, and these are meals. And on the Great Divide mountain bike route coming up, I think this is going to be my secret weapon, because that's a 2,000 calorie a day base layer. One other product we found that we really like.
You threw me a couple of these.
You've tried these, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the most immediate effect I've ever felt from any kind of supplement I've ever taken. And this was designed by a guy my age who went back and tried to do jiu-jitsu and couldn't figure out why he was so dead at the end and couldn't finish his rolls. It's sugar-free electrolyte replacement. And this is another Great Divide.
See, I could see a K, L, A, Kevin Latta.
It's 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium per stick. You can just put it in a bottle of water. And I mean, the guys at our gym.
I have to say too, like I went to sleep. I didn't drink anything the night before, but I woke up. I had minimal sleep, probably like 5 hours, 6 hours. I was prepping to do the pop-up shops for meal day. And I woke up with just a headache and just tired. And I was like, man, I don't understand why I have a headache right now. And I was like, I'm going to try one of these that Kevin gave me. And literally like 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, I was like, man, I kind of feel better.
Yeah, I mean, we're not getting anything. We don't get any kickbacks from this company, but I want people to feel as good as I've been feeling. Yeah. And especially some of the older guys, my age at the gym, have come, man, I've been handing out these sticks candy. Yeah. Have come up, and man, that was amazing. I rolled 4 extra rounds last night, or I felt this great, kind of like you said. And then sort of the last part of my big 3 is I do the On It Total Human. It's got a day pack and a night pack.
That is from Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah, okay. Well, he endorses, I think he's a part owner of the company. Okay. And I've already eaten my morning pack, but it's a multivitamin, and multivitamins are some of the biggest junk on the market. These big tablets that supposedly do everything sit in your stomach and don't dissolve. This is a morning and evening blend.
That quote on here?
Yeah, read it.
Yeah. He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still.
The struggle is real.
I mean, that's well said. Nice. Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, here, I got you a...
Dude, it's so great. Yeah. I already have one, but I love wearing your brand, and I'll proudly do that and bring anybody to it that I can't. Oh, this is sick. This is my favorite one.
Nice.
I love it. Hey, man, I absolutely love it.
A reminder for you in the mirror, brother. Well,
that's great. I've loved being here today, man.
I appreciate it.
Good luck with what you're doing. It's so needed out there, and I look forward to you blowing up.
I'll be keeping up with your journey on Great Divide. And you said you're bringing social media back.
I'm going to reactivate the Instagram account, and I'm going to link it to the race website. So just look for the guy in last place. That'll be my GPS transponder. And if I don't move for about 3 days, call someone, please.
Or send more Huel.
Hey, Tyler, thanks, brother. I've really enjoyed being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Y'all, never forget that you are worth it, and always strive to be the best version of you. Thank you for tuning in to this week's WorthWhile Spotlight. Our goal is to motivate people to become the best version of themselves possible through the power of storytelling. Our stories are written by the things that we experienced growing up, and these experiences, negative and positive, shape who we are and what we stand for. The beautiful thing about your story is that you get to decide how it's told. So as a diamond in the rough of life, hang tight and let your light shine bright.